So what exactly is a merchant account reserve asset, or M.A.R.A for short? Let me explain what M.A.R.As are and why they exist. The easiest way to explain this is to tell you about a man named Jason. Jason is an entrepreneur who came up with some really great designs for watches and wants to sell his watches online. In order to allow all of his customers to pay with a credit card, he needs a merchant account. So Jason talks to some of his buddies who all have merchant accounts, and they recommend a credit card processing company. Jason contacts the credit card processing company and learns he can get set up to start accepting credit cards pretty quickly for a 3% fee. So for every $100 Jason processes with his merchant account, he keeps $97, and the credit card processing company keeps $3 as their fee. Now, this is a pretty common scenario, but what has picked up traction in the previous 5 to 7 years is for the credit card processing company to also require a reserve. This reserve is a pool of Jason's money held by the credit card processing company to protect them against loss. I'll explain how the credit card companies can experience losses from Jason, but first, let me show you how the reserve is funded. Remember, a reserve is simply a pool of Jason's money held by the credit card processing company to protect them against loss. The most common way for these reserves to be funded is by the credit card processing company holding a percentage of Jason's sales. 10% is a very common hold amount. Let's look at how this works in Jason's example. The credit card processing company gave him a merchant account and charged him 3% to accept credit cards, but they also required a 10% reserve. When Jason sells a $100 watch, the credit card processing company is going to take $3, 3%, for their fee. They will then hold $10, 10%, to be added to Jason's reserve account, and then Jason will receive the balance of $87. You can see how that reserve account can grow quite quickly if Jason is selling a lot of watches. Say he sells $100,000 worth of watches in month 1. He'll have $10,000 in his reserve account. Say month 2, he sells $250,000 in watches. He just added another $25,000 to his reserve account. Month 3, he sells $400,000 in watches, adding another $40,000 to his reserve account. He now has $75,000 of his money being held in reserve by the credit card processing company. So you can see the credit card processing company is simply taking a portion of Jason's sales and moving it to his reserve account. I'll explain how Jason gets this money back shortly. Now that you understand what a reserve account is and how they're funded, let's talk about why the credit card processing companies require them and how having them protects them against loss. To understand this, you're going to need to know what a chargeback is. A chargeback is essentially a process where a consumer disputes a charge on their credit card or bank statement. A consumer may initiate a chargeback when they see a charge they didn't authorize, if they received a product that wasn't as described, or if they never received the product at all. They initiate the chargeback by calling their credit card company or bank and informing them of the charge they want to dispute. So let's use Jason in this example and say a customer named Linda ordered a watch for $100 from him, and it's been 2 weeks and she hasn't received her watch yet. She may try to call Jason's customer service number, but say she was unable to get through to anyone who could help her. Her next step may be to call her bank and dispute the charge by initiating a chargeback. Once she does that, the credit card processing company will automatically debit Jason's bank account for the amount disputed, in this case, $100. Jason will receive a copy of the chargeback, which will have Linda's explanation of why she disputed the charge. He'll be given a deadline to submit his side of the story, along with any evidence proving he sent her the watch. In most instances like this, Jason would need to submit a tracking number proving the product was delivered. Once Jason submits his side of the story, the division handling chargebacks will look at all the information and make a judgment call as to who they believe is correct. If Jason submits a tracking number proving the watch was delivered to Linda, they will most likely side with him and return the $100 they debited from his bank account. However, if Linda is determined to be correct, she will receive her $100 back. The chargeback process is really a way to help consumers from being defrauded. So let's look at how chargebacks can cause monetary losses to a credit card processing company. At the end of the day, the credit card processing company is responsible for covering those chargebacks and ensuring customers receive their money back if it's determined they are owed it. Let's look at one possible example using Jason to show how losses can occur. Say Jason is selling watches month after month and is doing pretty well, but through some poor financial management, he runs out of money and has to shut down his watch business. He doesn't have the money to ship out his last batch of orders. These customers, after not receiving their product, try to call Jason's customer service number, but the phone number has been disconnected for non-payment. Their next step will be to call their bank and initiate a chargeback. When the credit card processing company goes to debit Jason's bank account for the chargebacks, they're unable to do so because there is no money in the bank account. Clearly, in this example, the customer is going to win the chargeback and be owed their money back. Since the credit card processing company is ultimately responsible for ensuring customers get their money back, they have to pay the customer out of their own money. You could see, in a scenario like this, how those losses could add up pretty quickly. If Jason didn't ship out his final 500 orders and the watches cost $100 each, you have $50,000 that the credit card processing company is responsible for. If the credit card processing company didn't have a reserve in place, they would have lost $50,000. Fortunately for the credit card processing company, they can pay those customers back using the money in Jason's reserve account. This is why they require some businesses to maintain a reserve account. This is just one example out of many that could put the credit card processing company in the position where they have to cover chargebacks out of their own pocket. Credit card processing companies often require a reserve because of those types of possibilities. Not all merchant account closures are negative. Say Jason decides the watch business isn't right for him, and he's found an exciting new opportunity he wants to pursue. He doesn't need his merchant account any longer, so he closes it down. He is still obligated to cover any chargebacks that come in from his watch company. The credit card processing company makes it very clear in the merchant agreement that Jason must cover any chargebacks and fees from his bank account. The reserve account is only to be used if Jason becomes insolvent and the credit card processing company can no longer debit Jason's bank account. The credit card processing company will generally hold Jason's money in the reserve account for 270 days, or 9 months after the merchant account is closed down. The reason they hold the money for so long is because chargebacks can come in months after a sale. Say, for instance, Linda received her watch, which was guaranteed not to break, but after 4 months it stopped working. She will want to return that watch, and if she is unable to get through to someone to return it to, she will most likely initiate a chargeback. Not all credit card processing companies are the same. Some may release the money in the reserve account sooner if they see there are not a lot of chargebacks coming in, and some may hold it longer. It's a decision made by a person in the risk department of the credit card processing company. So, in summary, a merchant account reserve asset is a pool of the business owner's money held by the credit card processing company to protect them against losses incurred by chargebacks. The money in the reserve account is released back to the business owner once time has passed and the credit card processing company feels they no longer face the risk of chargebacks. I hope this gives you a better understanding of what a merchant account reserve asset is and how and why they are created. If you have any questions or would like clarification of any part of this, there is contact information provided on this page.